Your Denver Broncos just proved they made a very smart move. Sean Payton continues to be the GOAT. We take a look at across the NFL and how a couple of these Sean Payton moves are just paying wild dividends. We do a 53-man roster prediction. We talk about some trade candidates before the cutdown date on Tuesday. That and way more in this video. If you're new to the channel, I'm a diehard Denver Broncos fan named Ben. Helps me in the YouTube algorithm out a ton if you like the Broncos, if you would like and subscribe. So yesterday, the Broncos went immediately from the starting offense to the third stringers, and we're going to talk about why that may have had a bad impact on one player in particular, which we'll get to towards the end of this video. So we skipped Jarrett Stidham and went straight to Sam Ehlinger. And a lot of people were saying like, oh, that was to protect Bo Nix's feelings. Like, we don't want to have Bo Nix feel like he got overshadowed by Jarrett Stidham. I do not think that is the case even slightly. We've seen Sean Payton completely change this offense this season to be a zone run offense so that Bo Nix can thrive under center like he did so much last season. But what the real reason for showing off Sam Ehlinger this last game of the preseason is because what we just saw happen with the trade with the Philadelphia Eagles and the Minnesota Vikings, where essentially you are getting a 5th-round draft pick for the Philadelphia Eagles for a guy who had no likely scenario or path to playing the quarterback position there. So Sean Payton did this, as is pointed out right here by Ryan Edwards, not to protect Bo Nix's ego or anything like that. They did this to show off Sam Ehlinger so that we can get something for him right before cutdown. So I think that was a brilliant move by him. And we're just seeing these over and over, like the way Sean Payton has handled himself this offseason, and it's really from ownership down, that the level of culture that this Broncos team just oozes out is different than anywhere else across the league. We have 4 players during this offseason that could have handled themselves like Micah Parsons. We saw that during their preseason game, he was just straight up taking a nap on a training table, not dressed, he was like one of the only ones not wearing a jersey, and you just see him like physically trying to be checked out, seeing him put the organization on blast, put the ownership on blast, and you just take a look at how different that is than how Courtland Sutton handled himself, how Nik Bonitto's handled himself, who's in the exact same situation as Micah Parsons right now. Nik Bonitto is like playing and dominating in the preseason, even though he's in the exact same scenario. Zach Allen was in this situation going forward. And then lastly, we know John Franklin Meyer, who is a very vocal player, and he's tweeted out there that he thinks he's worthy of a contract. And awesome article here in, I think, the Denver Gazette. And basically Chris Thomason interviewed John Franklin Meyer, and he's like, hey, everybody wants to feel valued. I would love to get a contract, but at the end of the day, I'm here to play football with or without an extension. And that is an example of how culture eats strategy for breakfast, and the way Sean Payton has built this culture, it permeates every aspect of this locker room. And you just look, there's a lot of folks who say Sean Payton is like too cutthroat and he's an old school coach, but you just see the level of love that his current players have for him and his former players have for him. Yesterday in our live stream, we broke down a little bit all the former coaches or former players who flocked to Sean Payton. He is a talent magnet, and this is going to be a great decade with him coaching this team. So really, really cool stuff. A couple highlights from yesterday that we didn't get a chance to talk about, but I wanted to make sure that we cover today. Just aspects of Bo Nix's game that we see him having more time now at the line of scrimmage to diagnose the defense, which is going to be phenomenal. But then his athleticism, you guys, is sneaky good. And just seeing this play right here, and love seeing Tyler Badie just rocking it in this play. So take a look at how not only he's fantastic in pass block, he realizes here, hey, all the guys are accounted for, and there's no one for me to even pick up here. And watching Bo Nix kind of wriggle out of here and use his athleticism there, and Tyler Badie's awareness there to not just hang in there, but no, hey, the best way to help my quarterback is to get out of this mess of people, go get open and get a first down. So I think that's an aspect of Bo Nix's game that is just going to age like a Kraft single. Like, it's never going to get old, and I'm very, very hyped for it, that he ducks out of a sack, keeps his eyes upfield, he climbs the pocket. You know, young quarterbacks a lot of times in this exact situation, when they feel this pressure come on, their first inclination is like, hey, I got to bail out of this muddy pocket, right? And you could have seen Bo Nix like think, oh, I'm just going to go this way or that way. And we know that climbing the pocket is the best way. And Sean Payton loves that about Bo Nix. We're going to see a lot of that this season. Now, one of the interesting things that kind of came up during after the game here was that there were all of the post-game press conferences, and this one really stood out to me, and I'm curious what all of you think in the comments about why did Tyler Badie refuse to talk to the media after yesterday's game. I don't want to make a mountain out of a molehill. It could have been a number of things. He maybe had family waiting outside the locker room or something like that. But to me, I was very curious to still see him in that game at the very end of the game, because we knew there was no one on that field those last couple series who were making the team whatsoever. And I think Tyler Badie thinks that he is like running back number 3 for this team. And so maybe he was frustrated with the fact that he had reps with the ones and then also reps with the 5th string dudes at the end there. So let me know in the comments, what do you think? Why do you think Tyler Badie did not want to be interviewed by the media after the game? Again, it could be absolutely nothing, but something we'll for sure keep our eyes on. Other couple interesting notes that we saw yesterday and heard in Sean Payton's press conference as to just how hyped he is for J.K. Dobbins, Dre Greenlaw, and Jaleel McLaughlin. All of those guys are locks to make this team, and I think Sean Payton knows very well that, like, hey, Greenlaw, J.K. are guys who coming off of injuries who I want to keep in bubble wrap until the season starts. We've seen all we need to out of them. And then the Jaleel thing is just a really cool story with his wife going into labor, and I think Jaleel is a lock to make this team for sure. And again, you're seeing multiple Denver Broncos beat reporters saying that same thing, that, hey, Jaleel not even coming to this game just shows that his roster spot isn't even in question, because, you know, when it comes down to millions of dollars by being on an NFL franchise or being out of the NFL, obviously you don't want to miss the birth of a kid, but when millions of dollars are at stake, you're there. So it just shows, man, Sean Payton is a player's coach, and you know, players feel secure playing for him, and I think that's what you see with Jaleel not going there. And then the other thing that a lot of folks were panicking about, pushing the panic button, was the lack of our run game getting going, and folks may be saying that RJ Harvey is already a bust. Pump the brakes on that. Like this, you could see that the New Orleans Saints kind of played the run extremely well yesterday and really sold out to stop the run, which is why you had Courtland Sutton 83 yards receiving on just a couple of catches there. And they really were selling out to stop the run. And that's going to be how some teams will play us this year. They're like, okay, we'll stop the run. We don't think Bo Nix can beat us with his arm. And I don't think you'll see teams do that for too long, because we saw Bo Nix yesterday on pace to have a 400-yard game if he played all 4 quarters. And so don't panic at all. That, like, their game plan was, let's stop the run. For all we know, their entire purpose for that game was like, hey, let's focus this game on stopping the run. That's what we're going to work on, and that is exactly what we saw. So don't worry about that. And then seeing the all-22, it wasn't like, Cody Rourke's an opinion I definitely trust more than my own. And he came out and said he watched the all-22 and said it didn't seem like he was running into blocks. It didn't seem like it was RJ Harvey as a bust. It just seems like they were selling out to stop the run. And so Bo Nix beat him over top with his arms. But end of the day, this entire preseason going undefeated in it, we saw the depth that this team has and how night and day different that is from these Broncos teams that we've watched over these past decade. You know, I remember reading a Mike Kliss article just a couple days ago where he said, I'm having a hard time cutting this team down to the best 60. And a couple years ago, I had a hard time even coming up with 40 names that I thought were good enough to make an NFL roster. So this team has gone night and day difference. And it's a huge week for this team, because you're looking at going from 90-man roster down to 53, and there's going to be a lot of talent on this team who end up elsewhere. And so I really am hoping that the Denver Broncos are thinking through, what is a player who is not going to make this team, and can we get something for them rather than having them just go sign with another team for nothing? And an awesome article here in Predominantly Orange goes through the 3 players who they think the Broncos could actually get something for in a trade rather than them just signing elsewhere. I think that's why we saw Sam Ehlinger play last night so much, is because Sean Payton wanted to put his talent on there for full display, see him go down there and clinch the game there with a game-winning touchdown, although we didn't need it. We were up by 3 at that time, but essentially he played like that was a game-winning drive. Damari Mathis, I'm not exactly sure if I would rather keep him on the team and find a way to cut elsewhere, because we saw last season in that Browns game specifically when Levi Wallace just got toasted by Jerry Jeudy. You can't have too many great corners, and I really like Damari Mathis. And then Audric Estime, I'm very curious what the Broncos' plans are for him. We know he's one of the youngest players on this entire roster, and last night I thought we saw a ton of great things out of him, and had we seen that type of confidence running the ball, I don't think we would have even be talking about him not making the roster. If I were making the decision, I would hang on to Audric Estime. And if I'm putting my foot in the ground right now, I think the Broncos hang on to Audric Estime, one of the youngest players on your team. We saw him dominate last season on the road against the Kansas City Chiefs. We've seen Sean Payton like his work ethic, said last night in the post-game press conference, he thought he played a very good game. And I think if Sean wanted to get rid of Audric, they would have done exactly with Audric last night with the snap count what they did with Albert Okwuegbunam several years ago, where they just force-feed him the ball, and we didn't see Audric until the end of the game, which to me is a sign that Sean Payton wasn't trying to throw a bunch of tape out there for other teams to get enamored by. And so I hope and think, my prediction is that Audric Estime stays a Denver Bronco, but we're fixing to find out on Tuesday. Great week of content here. Make sure you're subbed so you don't miss a single second. And Broncos country, we got so much to believe in. Oh,